my name's Andrea Lacey, and I'm joined by Hazel as well from the ONS, and this is my dog Mika, who will probably bark at some point throughout the presentation, so apologies in advance for that, but she's not part of the presentation. So we're just going to talk a little bit about operational research, about the Operational Research Society, and a little bit about our careers so far in operational research and what we do at the moment in the ONS. So as Eve said, questions at any time, we're happy to take those when they come in. So if I get started, so what is operational research? We're going to cover a little bit about what it is and how it's used to solve everyday problems and how we use it to solve everyday real life problems in our careers as well. And I think OR can just be summarized as an interest in a varied and fun career using analytical skills. So not many people have heard of OR unless you come from a kind of maths background or you've done OR as part of your degree. When you ask people what is OR, quite a lot of people don't actually know. But operational research is the application of mathematical methods and advanced analysis to improve decision making, or the science of better decision making. It's quite broad, that's quite vague. That's because OR has loads of practical applications and loads of different ways that it can be used, and OR is used by many businesses, shops, airlines, hospitals, government like Hazel and I work for the ONS. So OR can be used in many different ways to help people make better decisions. So when is OR used? Well, decision making and problem solving in businesses can be complicated and messy, and it might not be fully clear what the main problem is and what the outcome of different actions might be, or how well things are currently working. And there might be lots of different factors that you need to consider when you're looking at everything when you're kind of running or working in a business. So for example, if a business is going to make a big change, if things don't go well, they might upset customers, they might lose sales, they might slow down production, or they might need extra staff. The staff might need to be trained differently. And all of these things can have a really negative impact on the business. So operational research is used to help reduce the chances of these things happening. So by modeling and by looking at different scenarios, OR can help you assess what the problems actually are and then how you can future-proof your business against them. So that might all sound a bit conceptual and a bit vague. So I'm going to talk in a bit of detail about some examples of when OR is actually used in the world around us today. So one example is in supermarkets. So supermarkets can use teams of OR problem solvers to make decisions such as understanding customer buy-in patterns. So they could look at, for example, if you think about Tesco's have club cards, and that's a really good example of operational research. So these let Tesco track what their customers are buying, creating a massive amount of data for analysts, OR analysts to use. So you can look at patterns in the data, such as when people are buying certain items or who buys what, when, and you can use this to inform your stock. So it might show that, for example, lots of people might buy milk on a Saturday. So then the supermarket knows that they need to put loads of milk on the shelves on a Saturday or Friday, just in case. And it might show that lots of people shop at certain times on a particular day. So the store managers know when they need to have more staff on board. So it's quite easy to see that OR can have a big impact on making the right decisions and helping them make customers happy, but also make profits and optimize their business. Another example of OR in action is airlines. I know many of us haven't been on holiday for a while now, so airlines might be a distant memory, but operational research is used quite a lot in airlines and airports, and you get involved in loads of really important decision making. So, for example, when you book a holiday, operational research has been used to decide where an airline will fly to and how much they charge for your ticket. They look at customer buying patterns to predict future demand. When you arrive at an airport, OR has been used to minimize your queuing times. I know it might not feel like it as sometimes, but when you're arriving at your terminal, all of those processes to get you through your security, simulation is used to model flows of passengers, and it ensures that the right numbers of staff are there and equipment's in the right place at the right time. So as you're passing through the airport, that's a really good example of OR in action. When you board the plane, OR has helped choose your boarding strategy. So to ensure that your plane leaves on time, it's optimized how people board the plane. And it's even used to forecast how many people are likely to cancel their holiday to help airlines look at ticket sales. So airlines really rely on OR to make their service better and to help make their decisions more informed, which results in better outcomes for the businesses and hopefully for people who fly as well. Just looking at that picture makes me a little bit sad. I just really want to go on holiday. But something which is quite relevant at the moment as well is OR being used in healthcare. So in hospitals, OR staff are used to allocate patients, equipment and teams to operate in theatres, for example, based on urgency and specific requirements of each patient. You can model hospital capacity, beds, how many beds are needed, attendance at appointments, just like people cancelling their holiday, people attending their appointment, being late, being early. You can use operational research to model all of these things to then look at, for example, how many nurses or staff are required on a particular shift. So hopefully they give a bit of a flavour of the different ways that OR can be used in the real world, and how as an operational research analyst you really can have an influence on really important decisions in the world around us. So what are OR techniques that are used? So simulation is something that's used quite a lot in operational research. It's a modelling tool which is fab for looking at loads of different outcomes and loads of different ways to solve a problem. You can try lots of different solutions until you find the best one. So it helps you to test things in a safe way as well. So for example, the NHS uses simulation a lot, as I mentioned, to look at hospital beds and capacity. It wouldn't be very wise to test out, oh, well, maybe we'll try 3 nurses on this shift today in a live environment, because that could have a really big impact on people's lives. So simulation allows you to test lots of variables to look at what the outcomes might be in different circumstances. You can test that and then apply the best options in a real life scenario. And optimization is another technique. So this looks at, depending on what's most important, you can look at the best use of limited resources. So if you're looking at manufacturing or looking at the delivery of products, you can optimize the best route, for example, of what to take to ensure that delivery is as optimum as it can be. And as I said, this tests it in a sort of safe environment so that you're not kind of winging it as you go out on your van. You're looking at things in an operational research environment. You can test them beforehand. So there are many, many more techniques than just these 2, but hopefully they give a little bit of a flavour of the different sort of things that you can use as an operational research analyst. And then just generally, where can OR take you? So this slide just shows a huge range of different businesses, government, non-government, public and private sector, where operational research analysts are used every day to inform decision making. So as I mentioned, supermarkets, banks, airlines, and then government such as the ONS where me and Hazel work. Admiral is another big one, insurance companies, all these are quite local to Wales as well. So really this gives a flavour for the huge amount of places that a career in operational research can take you. And it's not just limited to this slide as well, there's many, many more too. This is a word cloud taken from LinkedIn job descriptions of operational researchers and people who work in OR and what they think their job title is. So as you can see, there's a huge range of different job titles for people who work in operational research. So when you're an operational researcher, you're not kind of doing the same thing every day, and you're probably not doing the same thing as your colleague. Like hopefully you'll see that when Hazel and I tell our stories of what we do in our day-to-day jobs a bit later. So this hopefully gives a flavour for the huge different amount of things that you can do as an operational researcher. I think at this point, I'm handing over to Hazel to talk us through the Government Operational Research Service.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Yes, Andrea and I were part of the Government Operational Research Service, and it operates, I think, is at least 25 government departments, and they all do different things. And we think at the moment there's over 1,000 GORS members now within the civil service, so we're growing all the time, looking for more, and we are spread out across Britain. You can see, I know I think the Department of Health used it for a project to spot, could you predict norovirus, the vomiting bug, and they used things like, they did a scrape of Twitter data, and they were looking at, can we predict an outbreak based on what people are putting on Twitter? And they looked at a range of words that people use for being sick and all sorts of interesting words, and the predictions did match outbreaks. So it was really interesting, sort of like a new way, what can we do new, and the sort of traditional uses of operational research as well. And you'll find within these government departments of no two jobs are the same. As Andrea said, we work for ONS, but we do something completely different. So depending where you end up, you could do a range of different analytical jobs. They're all sort of interesting and different. So go to the next slide, please. Ooh. No, thank you. Yes, who are we? So we're from a range of different backgrounds. We have degrees in operational research. There are degrees maths, statistics, physics, chemistry, of computer science, engineering, and we've come from a range of occupations, as you see from my story next. We've had people who work as teachers, scientists, accountants, consultants, actuaries. There's a whole range of different professions. Go to the next slide. Feel like Chris Whitty. Yeah, I do. I should go and help Boris's next presentation. I quite go to the next slide. So here's my story. It's a bit different to the usual story. I started off being an accountant. I was an accountant for 9 years. I was actually a business operations accountant. And when I think back, I was actually doing OR, and I didn't know it at the time. But I got bored of that after 9 years. And sort of went back, followed my passion. I went back and did a degree in geology and geography because I was always interested in the sciences. Really found my passion again, and we did quite a lot of statistics in the degree as well. We used things like SPSS, which is a bit outdated now. But I decided I loved it so much I was going to do my PhD. So I came to Swansea, back to Swansea, and did my PhD at Swansea University. And I've got a PhD in geography. If you read it, it's sort of like PhD in statistics with a bit of geography thrown in. So there's a picture of me on the slide there. I was doing my fieldwork in Norway. I was looking at working out lichen growth rates on glacier moraines, and the moraines are when a glacier retreats, it leaves a load of rocks behind. So we want to work out how fast the glacier is retreating, obviously things like climate change. So you're trying to work out a proxy method for dating that pile of rocks, so to speak. So I did that. I went to Norway, and I was camping in the middle of nowhere, which didn't really suit me because I prefer hotel. I did it, and it was amazing. And I had a huge amount of data to analyse for my PhD. And that's why, even though I got a degree in geography and geology, I qualified to be an OR because more than half my PhD was statistics. So it's quite important. And while I was doing the statistics, the PhD, and afterwards, I was teaching at the university. I was doing geography and geology. I was going out doing field trips, and there's a picture of me in the top right-hand corner down at Three Cliffs Bay. And I thought, it's fantastic. I get paid to look at rocks. What could be better? I really enjoyed it. But I was only part-time on term-time only contracts. And a friend suggested to me, why don't you apply to ONS? You really like it because my background's in the PhD. So I joined as an operational researcher 4 years ago. And I was put in national accounts, part of ONS, and I was on a team that was improving calculation of GDP, gross domestic product. You hear a lot on the news going up, going down. And we were looking at, could we include VAT data from HMRC in the monthly run? So I had this data set of 64 million rows of data a month to quality assure. As you probably know, that does not fit on an Excel spreadsheet. So we were developing new ways. How can we analyse this data, quality assure it? We can't just have this data and put it in GDP without doing some forms of check. I was part of the team that developed a new way of including it, and it was included into GDP the first time in December 2017, and it's been used since. So the methods that I helped set up are still being used today. And then a job came up in the environmental team. And I was like, yes, that's me. So I applied and got it, and I'm on the natural capital team. You probably haven't used natural capital before, but it's we sort of like look at the benefits that nature provides to society. So I think GDP doesn't really tell the story of the whole economy. There's bits missing. You've got to understand nature, so by understanding the benefits, you can therefore include it in your decision making. I've done work on things like peatlands, woodlands, and we've produced statistics. For example, trees are worth more than just being chopped down for the timber. They provide other benefits, like they remove pollution, they give places for recreation, you can use it as an educational resource. And we sort of worked out the benefits that the tree is worth 12 times more left standing than just its timber value alone. So by having those figures, decision makers can then think about it and the importance of nature when they're making decisions. You've probably seen there's a lot in the news lately about we must include nature. So it's something called Dasgupta review. So the work we're doing is seen as, well, it is important, you should include nature. And we're constantly sort of developing new ways of how to value these benefits to society. Quite different from the VAT role. So 64 million rows of data, I get very little. So it's of looking the more sort of softer side of OR, looking at how can problem solving, how can we get data, how can we apportion if you only get it for Wales and not England, and so problem solving. So there's a lot of problem solving. So I really enjoy the job, and it's quite different to Andrea. So I'll hand back now to Andrea, who's going to tell you her story, which will be completely different to mine.
Thanks, Hazel. So yeah, I had a bit more of a sort of traditional route into operational research, should we say. So I studied at Cardiff University, and I did a degree in maths, operational research and statistics. So I had heard of operational research in uni, and I loved OR. I really enjoyed those modules on queuing theory, stock control, game theory. Yeah, I loved it. So when I was doing my degree, I knew that I wanted to use this sort of applied maths. And, you know, I've got quite an analytical brain, but I loved problem solving using analysis. And that's really what drove me to look into careers involving operational research. As part of my degree, I did a year out where I worked for the Welsh Government. So this was my first kind of real job. Like, I'd had part-time jobs before, but this was my first kind of office job, my first taste of government and working with data to inform decisions. So I worked for the Care and Social Services Inspectorate, where I was basically responsible for looking at how likely care homes or social care settings were to become at risk. So modelling data on the people who were in these settings and what the outcomes of inspections were and how likely different settings were to basically go into an at-risk status. So this was my first opportunity where I'd really use data to influence decisions that could affect people's lives. So that was my first taste of, yeah, I definitely want to do this as a career. So I went back to uni, I finished my degree, and then while I was there, I applied for a job at the ONS. And I actually went into the ONS as a graduate statistician, not an operational researcher. But it was kind of my foot in the door because I knew I wanted to work in data and analysis. And that was how I kind of got my route in. And then shortly after I joined ONS, I heard about the Government Operational Research Service, because when I left uni, it didn't have as much presence as it does now. So I heard about it through ONS, and then I sought it out and looked to join. So I went for a promotion through the Operational Research Service. And yeah, I've been an operational researcher since. So in ONS, I've done a huge range of different jobs. My first proper operational research job was in our methodology department, and this is where a lot of our core statistics happen. And I was responsible for modelling how likely people were to drop out of our surveys using their response data and based on different characteristics. So this really had an impact on quite a few ONS surveys. So it was really interesting to look at what different factors influence how likely people are to respond. And that informed lots of different decisions made across the organisation. The next slide I've got shows a couple more of my highlights at ONS. I was lucky enough to go on secondment to Cabinet Office. And for someone like me who lives in Wales, went to uni in Wales, you know, the idea of working in London in Cabinet Office was bonkers to me. But there I was, I found myself on a couple month long secondment working in Whitehall. And it was during the Brexit times and during when Theresa May was in power and the meaningful vote and all that was going on. And I was in Cabinet Office to look at childcare policies at the time, not Brexit, but I was brought in to work alongside policymakers to analyse the effectiveness of childcare policies. So the 30 hours free childcare policy that had been brought in England and Wales, how many people were taking it up and whether it was actually incentivising parents to go back into work. And I just remember being in Cabinet Office and it all being a bit bonkers. I didn't get my photo outside number 10, which I was really gutted about when I was there. But I did see a handwritten note from Theresa May past my desk, which was really exciting when she approved one of our papers. It just basically had her signature on it and it was like approved. So I was quite excited by that, which is a bit lame, I know, but that was a particularly exciting part. And for the last year, I think the ONS and government generally, and obviously businesses as well, have completely transformed to work in the age of coronavirus. I was quite heavily involved in a few different parts of the ONS response to coronavirus, one of which was I'm part of a team currently of people who stood up a survey in schools across England to look at how likely children and teachers are to catch COVID in schools, basically. So looking at testing children in school and teachers and looking at transmission in the school setting and whether the school is what policies they have for protecting children from coronavirus. So that has been quite exciting and very, very chaotic and lots to do in not a lot of time, but it's been really exciting to be involved in something which is informing policy. Like our first paper that we put together was put to Gavin Williamson to make that decision on when schools should reopen. So yeah, it was really kind of central to decision making. I've been involved a lot in fast, rapid statistics that the ONS has sent to Cabinet Office and the wider government on coronavirus. So this is a screen grab of one of the slides that was in the daily briefing that I put together using our data. So it was on how people are avoiding contact with other people and working from home. So it was a bit surreal when my team before coronavirus hit, we were responsible for providing statistics to government to help inform decision making, but we'd never kind of worked at this pace before. So it was very surreal to then ask to stand up really rapid statistics, and for those statistics to be featured regularly on the daily briefing. It was just an absolutely crazy time, and still continues to be a crazy time to be an analyst. But looking at these statistics and kind of doing this analysis at pace has been a really, really exciting part of my career for sure. And the last one is just a picture of me, which is a bit of a rubbish picture, but as part of when I was working on the coronavirus statistics, I was interviewed on ITV News about the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. So we asked a couple of questions about how comfortable people felt eating at restaurants. And my team published those statistics, and we were contacted by ITV, and I was interviewed on 3 different radio stations live on the same day, which was a very stressful day. And then in the evening, they were like, can you come and do a pre-recorded interview for the 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock news? So again, that was, yeah, an exciting thing. It was very, very scary being interviewed on TV. But yeah, this was just another part of my career that when I was back in uni, I never would have thought that operational research could take me there really. But yeah, just being interviewed on our statistics and our data analysis was really, really exciting. So yeah, hopefully that gives a bit of a flavour for a variety of different things that you can do as an analyst and operational researcher in government, but hopefully a bit wider as well. And Hazel, that's the end of my story. So I think I'm handing back to you now to talk a little bit about recruitment.
Thank you, Andrea. I realise because Andrea's sharing the slides, you don't get to see my amazing face until the end when the 3 of us can share. So yeah, I realise I'm just looking at Andrea when I'm talking to you. So you'll see me at the end. And I forgot to mention in my story, when I was doing my teaching, I did my teacher training at your university, the University of South Wales. So I'm one of your alumni students. So I really enjoyed it. Anyway, on to GOR's recruitment. So there are campaigns out regularly for national operational researchers. They're usually about every 6 months for usually come in from university or some experience at a HEO level. The ONS does have a current campaign. If you're due to graduate this year, get online quick because the deadline is this Thursday. But we do have them about every 6 months, but to give you an idea of what we're looking for, and do read the job description carefully. And what we ask for, there's different what they call behaviours, and we want you to show evidence of certain skills. So really read the application form carefully and what we're asking, and any links they send to help you fill in the form. It's really important. And we have something called the fast stream, which I think it says it's now open for this year. I'm not sure. I did go and check on the operational research, the GOR's website, fast stream. It says you can apply. I assume that's for this year. I couldn't get all the details, but if you are interested in the fast stream, go onto the government website. And we do have what we call the mainstream campaigns, which you apply to be an operational researcher, and then you're allocated to a government department. You can pick preferences. So there's 3 different ways: a direct campaign from a government department, the fast stream, and then some mainstream. And they're all on the Civil Service Jobs website. I've written down the link there, but just Google it. Yeah, Civil Service Jobs. And you can set up what we call alerts. So if you're interested in a job with operational research in, you can select that and it will send you an email every time a job comes out. I had a look yesterday and there was quite a few different jobs with OR in. So yeah, you can get sent alerts. I think the next slide is for the OR Society, which I believe our host is just going to explain about this.
Yep, thank you. So as I mentioned at the start, I'm from the Operational Research Society, and we are the membership organisation for people like Andrea or Hazel who work in OR. But we also offer student membership, which you'll be pleased to hear is completely free of charge. And I would really encourage you guys to sign up, because there's a whole host of benefits that we offer. Unfortunately, if you're in your final year, you've just missed our deadline for our master's scholarship. But if you're a first or second year, I'd bear that in mind. If you'd like to study a master's in OR, we might be able to pay for you to do that. We also run a careers event every year that the government OR service do normally come along to, actually. And it's the only careers event in the UK that just focuses on careers in OR and analytics. So if you're listening to this and thinking, yep, that sounds like me, I really like problem solving and analytics too, I'd encourage you to sign up, and then you'll get emails when we're running that. Our next event will be in November. And we also do things like run conferences that you get discount rates to. You can network with our members in our regional societies and our special interest groups. And there are also some exciting volunteering opportunities that can just help you to really make your CV stand out. And in a similar vein, you can apply for the first stage of our accreditation program as a student, which lets you put letters after your name, and again just demonstrates to potential employers that you're really committed to this sort of field, and just helps you stand out from the crowd a bit as you're job hunting. That's it from me.
I think that's the end of our slides.
Yeah, the next slide does have all the OR Society links on. I don't know if you want to show that first before we open up to questions, and then you can take the presentation down and the three of us should be revealed, I think.
There we go.
Fab. So if anybody does have any questions, please put them in the Q&A now. And while you're all typing, I was interested to know, what, as you've both obviously been through the interview process for GORS and for the ONS, what piece of advice would you give to students who are thinking of applying?
I would probably just say practice, 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 and reach out and get advice and help from anyone and everyone. Make use of your career service. I applied, when I first applied for my placement year, I think Welsh Government was actually my fourth or fifth interview, because I just didn't know how to answer the type of questions that were needed. But I reached out to our career service and I thought something's going wrong. And I arranged for a mock interview, and they were a lot more knowledgeable in the types of questions that the government usually ask. So that definitely helped me. And I would say, we don't have our email addresses on here, but we can kind of put our email addresses in the chat or whatever. People can contact us if they've got any questions, if they are applying for the ONS recruitment specifically. We'd be more than happy. I hope I'm not speaking on your behalf, Hazel, but
no, I've helped people.
For people to get in touch with us if they go in for these kinds of things and haven't done a competency-based interview before, we can give some help and guidance.
On every job that's advertised on the Civil Service Jobs website, there is a contact, so there will be an OR email address at the bottom, like for ONS. So there is someone if you're unsure, and download the documents, because they asked you for 3 different skills, OR skills, and when we're sifting for interviews, we have certain things you have to include. So read those documents carefully and use the words in the documents as my tip. It took me 2 goes to get into ONS, because the first I was absolutely clueless, and I got someone to help me. They just rewrote what I'd written. The contents didn't change, but how I wrote it was important. I just the Civil Service has its own unique way, I think, of job applications. But say what they're asked for. It gives you a list. So it was a bit like catchphrase, and it's say what you see. So if that's what they're asking for, give us that evidence. Make it easy, because we want people to come and join us. But you see some applications and you think these people obviously have the skills, looking at their education qualifications, but they haven't expressed it in the rest of the form. So read it carefully.
Yeah, always good advice. So still no questions from the students. Please do ask if you have any questions. We're here to help and to chat. And I guess I'd be interested to know, like, it sounds like you've both done, you know, really interesting different things, from like being interviewed on the radio and the news to I didn't realise that the ONS had like an environment and nature division, but that's like working out the value of a tree. That's fascinating. Like, what are your absolute favourite parts of working in OR if you just had to pick one?
I think it is putting a value to nature, because it's really hard, and we like to say nature is not valueless, it's priceless, is my sort of catchphrase when I go out talking. But how do you value it? And before I joined the Natural Capital team, I had no idea. And we had to set up new ways of doing it. So we looked at what people spend on recreation to go and use habitats like woodlands, looked at the pollution removed and the carbon stored. Trees store a lot of carbon, and look at that value. If the trees weren't there, there'd be a lot more carbon in the air. So you've got to think of these sort of some innovative new ways of valuing nature. And nature, people like it because it's there. Well, how can you value because it's there, its existence? It's quite hard, but we try and look at things that you can sort of value, so decision makers use it. I had a big response to the peatlands one, because we sort of pointed out that a lot of the peatlands which store carbon in the UK are very degraded, and it's actually because it's degraded, it's contributing to greenhouse gases. So this puts big negative value on it's added to the greenhouse gas emissions. So if they restored them, it wouldn't be emitting anymore, it'd be storing it. And this was picked up by a lot of the press and other agencies, and it's still being used now, is quoted. It's being used a lot, so it's really important to point out that there is something you can do. We've got a natural solution to climate change, so it is still being promoted. So I liked it, the fact that you did make a difference, you did something that pointed this out, and it sort of gathered momentum. So I did interviews on the phone, but I didn't make it on the screen. Our director went and did that bit.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on, Hazel. Were you finished?
No, I've been quoted, and I do laugh at one of my quotes. My manager told me, "You're telling the truth there." So, well, it is truth. So now Hazel from the ONS says, it's quite funny. I do laugh every time. So, well, it's true. I go about the value of trees. So quite like it.
I would say that it's probably quite similar, that my highlight has just been being able to inform decisions with analysis and modelling. I think that being an operational researcher, it gives you a seat at that table. It wasn't just like my secondment at Cabinet Office. I've been to quite a few cross-government workshops with policy colleagues and people who don't have an analytical background, but to be able to present to people what the data shows and what that actually means in terms of real outcomes and real people, and then helping them to make a decision based on evidence, I think, to me, is really important. And you've only got to look at like the coronavirus briefing. Ian Diamond, the national statistician, has been on loads of these briefings, and he's on Andrew Marr every other day. But it just goes to show that in this country there is a real kind of focus on evidence-based decision making, and as an operational researcher you are really able to influence these kinds of decisions. And even if you don't work in government, even if you work in businesses, as I mentioned, you do have a real impact on the way that people do their day-to-day lives. So yeah, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Oh, no, that's kind of something that I hear quite a lot from people who work in government OR. I spoke to a recent graduate who worked for HMRC, and he said, there's only 3 people in my team. Even though I'm a graduate, I really am helping make big decisions every day, and the work I do has a real impact. And I think that must be such a satisfying feeling.
100%.
There's some questions. There's some questions there in the Q&A.
Yeah. So Elliot asks, has OR influenced decisions in your personal lives?
Oh, sorry, I just clicked the box and I couldn't quite see then. Do you mean in terms of like, have we used OR to problem solve in our personal lives? Because I've definitely done that when I've been moving house and buying a house.
Yeah, you sort of use decision making without realizing you're using OR, I think is the words. It's the way my brain works, I think, yeah. Because sometimes you sort of do mind mapping for decision. When I was living in the Midlands at the time, I'd say, do I come back to Wales or do I stay? And you sort of make sort of lists of the twos and fours and against, and think of different scenarios. And I think you do it without thinking about it. Yeah, I like to know the evidence. What's the evidence? What are the facts? I don't just go in there. Yeah, I like to think about things. Yeah. And write it all down.
Spreadsheet for everything.
Yes, well, if you could see my desk, I won't turn it around. There's paper everywhere around me. It's great. I write ideas down and stick them around, even for my non-work things. I sort of use the same techniques.
So Ruth has asked, what support or training do you give graduates who start within the ONS?
Shall I take this one? I think that in ONS in particular, and probably in the wider government operational research service, there's a huge amount of support. And what I will say about operational research when you compare with statistics or other analytical professions is that I really feel like there is a sense of community. And there's loads of events like conferences and induction sessions where networking is just so invaluable. But specifically within ONS, we've got a really good sort of training team where it's called the Learning Hub. And there are a whole host of courses that you can enroll on to do with programming, to do with softer skills, to do with presentation skills and meetings, and generally on well-being, resilience. There's so many different courses that you can access right through as a graduate, right through your career. There are leadership pathways as well if you're interested in pursuing leadership roles. There's a lot of support for those as well. So there is a really good culture of learning. I think because we're an organisation of analysts, there is a huge amount of support for both the kind of core training in terms of statistics, analysis, programming, data science, but also a huge amount of support for the softer skills as well.
And you're encouraged, you have to do 50 hours a year of training for your, to keep your PDP, your development up to date. So you have to do 50 hours of general sort of learning and 50 hours of operational research. So like straight after this, I'm now going on to a Python course. So there's all, there's things to develop you all the time. We have an annual operational research conference where everyone comes from all over the country, preferably in person. I'm hoping the virtual isn't quite the same, I think. But in those times when you could leave home and travel, we had an annual conference, and you get to hear about different techniques of the people using, of how they use it in their job, and you're encouraged to go to these events. So it's sort of continuous learning.
Something else which is quite good that ONS does as well is the Data Science Accelerator program, and that is something where you're able to pick a project which is inside or outside of your team. It could just be something you're interested in, and through that you get specific data science learning and support through programming and different teaching, for core teaching as well as kind of on the job learning, and that kind of helps you progress your data science skills. So that's something that's really good, and always encourage new people to the ONS to take advantage of, new analysts.
Fantastic. Well, I think we'll wrap up there unless there's any last minute questions. I've just put my email address in the chat, so if any students think of any questions afterwards, you're very welcome to send them to me, and then I can send them on to Andrea and Hazel. I know they mentioned being happy to give support. But yeah, I think I really enjoyed listening to this talk, and I learned a lot that I didn't know before. So yeah, I think just thank you very much, Andrea and Hazel, for giving up your time today and for giving us this talk. Thank you very much, students, for coming along. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Yeah, any final thoughts from either of yourselves?
No, I've been doing OR most of my life and didn't know I was doing it, to be honest. So now I really enjoy it, problem solving. I've loved it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, just to say thank you for listening to us talk for a little bit, and yeah, have a lovely afternoon.
Yeah, enjoy. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.